The tritone substitution is a really common way to spice up a 2-5-1. Take a 2-5-1 in C, D minor 7, G7, C major 7, put a tritone sub in its place. So D minor 7, D flat 7, subbing for the G7, C major 7. We've instantly got a more interesting sound. That is covered in my last video on the tritone sub, and I'll put a link in the description to that. But today's lesson is to build on that, take things up a notch, and look at what's called the tritones minor. This is something jazz musicians exploit all the time over 2/5s, and it's a way to ramp up the tension, and it's something you really want to handle of and be aware of. What is this tritones minor? Well, if we think of the 5 chord, it often comes with a minor chord, it often comes with the 2 chord, so that like the G7 there in the 2/5 came with D minor 7. So if we're substituting the dominant chord for another dominant chord, that dominant chord we're putting in its place will have a 2 chord as well. So let's take that tritone in the key of C, which went D minor 7, D flat 7, C major 7. We need to find out the 2 chord of that D flat 7 chord. Now D flat is the 5th chord of G flat major. Take that key, we have the following chords: G flat major, A flat minor, B flat minor, C flat major, D flat 7, E flat minor 7, F minor 7 flat 5, back to G flat major. So the 2 chord was A flat minor, making a 2-5-1 in that key, A flat minor, D flat 7, G flat major. So we could have something like this: a D minor 7, A flat minor, D flat 7, C. Compared to just a tritone, which is pretty cool. We could also go D minor 7, G7, A flat minor 7, D flat 7, C, all over what used to be D minor 7, G7, C. So it's just adding different layers, if you like. So all that's happening is the 2 of the tritone is preceding it to add a little bit more interest and a little bit more of an outside sound. And to give you an example to help put this in context, Satin Doll does it at the end of the A section. So we start out 2-5 in C, 2-5 in D, then we get this minor 2-5, often played as minor 2-5 or from G, or it can be a major 2-5, to D7, then here A flat minor, D flat 7, C. So here when it comes in, it sounds quite interesting. And it creates that nice chromatic fall I really like. Let's apply this to a tune. Let's imagine, oh, we want to, you know, try some subs out on a tune. Let's take the A train. So with these changes, C6, D7 flat 5. Here's the 2-5-1 we're going to change, D minor 7, G7, C. So let's just put a D flat 7 in first. Let's just put a tritone in instead of the G7. So that would give us C6, D7 flat 5, D minor, then the tritone, D flat 7, C. Give us a nice chromatic fall at the end. This time, let's put in the tritones minor. So we're going to go A flat minor 7, D flat 7, C. So C6, D7 flat 5, D minor 7. Now let's put in the quick 2. So we're going to go D minor 7, G7, then the tritone pair. So C6, D7 flat 5. Now, I think that might be a bit too much. It'd be a bit much for someone soloing over it. They'd be like, "What? Whoa, what's that?" But you know, thinking of you know, nice ways to embellish over the top of the chords, or for intros, or to think about the way you're soloing as well to create different sounds. So, what use is the tritones minor to you? What can you do with this? Well, for me, it's for 2 things: movement and tension. And it really depends on context whether we want those things, who you're playing with, what other instruments are doing. You know, sometimes you have to have discussions with bandmates, people you're playing with, about these sort of things to go, oh, okay, we're doing that. Or if they know that it's something you do sometimes, they can hear you and follow you. And, you know, most importantly, really try to listen out for these sort of things when you're either listening to jazz, watching videos, people playing those sort of things, and try and think, oh, is that thing? Is that tritones minor? You know, you'll start to hear it. You open up to it. Play the chord tones of it. You know, so that's D minor 7, A flat minor, D flat 7 into a C, you've got to get used to it in chord form, but also single note. Really important to do both. Playing the YouTube lesson roulette, which we're all very familiar with, can be great, but it also can be overwhelming. It can be frustrating because, like in today's video there, I'm sure for some viewers there'll be gaps and things where some of it makes sense and other bits don't, and it's often down to some things that you haven't yet fully explored. So I think something that would be really important to understand very fully to help understand this material would be the 251 itself and everything that's going on there. So I'll put a link in the description. I've got a little ebook on everything about the major 251, which will really help you explore it in detail, which, you know, I think if you've got a really good handle on that, all this stuff just gets much easier, especially doing these things in different keys and spotting these sort of subs in other keys. So be sure to check that out, link in the description. As ever, the resources, PDF, link in the description too. Also links to the Jazz Guitar with Andy Facebook group and my Buy Me a Coffee page if you want to shout me a coffee for today's lesson. Thanks ever so much for tuning in. If you're new here, Jazz Guitar Lessons every Wednesday and Saturday. If you've got any questions, I'll try and clarify them. Leave me a comment. Until next time, you guys take care.